People like you have no place in this company. The manager's voice cut through the office air, thick with contempt. With all due respect, ma'am, Maya replied, her voice calm and steady. My qualifications are perfectly suited for this role. Then be ready to face the consequences. Without another word, the manager, Heather, moved with deliberate slowness. She picked up the water pitcher from her desk and, as the office watched in stunned silence, poured its contents directly over Maya's head. A cascade of icy water streamed down Maya's face, soaking her hair and plastering her blouse to her skin. Heather's smirk was cruel. Looks like you needed to cool off. She turned and walked away. Water dripping from her chin, Maya walked with unshakable dignity to the bathroom. Only when the door clicked shut behind her did she allow a deep, shuddering breath. Staring at her drenched reflection in the mirror, she pulled out her phone. "Dad," she said quietly, her voice barely a whisper as droplets fell onto the screen. "It's worse than we imagined. Much worse." Little did Heather know this was only the beginning. Soon, Maya would be fired for a theft she knew nothing about, escorted from the building in disgrace. But the very next day, she would return, not as an employee, but as their new CEO. From his penthouse office, Robert Johnson watched the city lights twinkle like a distant galaxy. On his desk lay the sixth anonymous complaint this quarter. The message was undeniable. Something toxic was festering within the flagship branch of Johnson Industries. On paper, the numbers were stellar, but the truth was a rot hiding just beneath the surface. 6 employees had quit in 3 months, each departure a silent testament to the disturbing picture painted by the complaints. The elevator doors slid open to reveal Maya Johnson, his brilliant daughter, designer luggage in hand. Confidence radiated from her with every step, a testament to the Harvard Business School credentials that made any father proud. After conquering the startup world in London, she was finally home to claim her birthright. "Welcome home, sweetheart," Robert said, pulling her into a warm embrace. "Harvard, your ventures in London, you're more than ready to take over." Maya beamed, the culmination of 5 years of relentless preparation. But as Robert released her, his smile faded, replaced by a grave concern. "Something's wrong at the flagship branch," he said, his voice heavy. "The numbers look impressive, but we've lost 6 employees. These complaint emails, they suggest a pattern." He slid a tablet across the desk. Maya's eyes widened as she scrolled through the messages, stories of harassment, discrimination, and a hostile work environment, all sent anonymously, all steeped in the fear of retaliation. "Before I announce you as CEO," Robert continued, "I need you to see what's really happening on the ground floor. I need you to go undercover." The thrill of her homecoming vanished. "Dad, I'm qualified to lead now. I've spent years preparing for this. Why the delay?" Robert walked to the floor-to-ceiling windows, gazing down at the city. "Because this company needs to be fixed from the inside out. Reports won't show us the truth. Someone needs to experience it firsthand." He turned to face her. "I built this company from nothing, Maya. But what's the point of passing it down if the foundation is rotten?" Maya looked at the complaints again, each one a piece of a troubling puzzle. "1 month," Robert said. "Go in as a new hire. See the company through the eyes of someone without power. Then, you'll know exactly what needs to change." She gave a reluctant nod. She had never backed down from a challenge. "Fine. 1 month." The transformation was immediate. Designer labels were replaced with modest business attire. Her resume was carefully edited, qualified, but not suspiciously so. She was no longer Maya Johnson, heir apparent. She was Maya Davis, a marketing specialist. Robert made a single, discreet call to Sarah, his most trusted HR executive. "The position is to be filled by Maya Davis, no questions asked. Complete confidentiality is essential." As she prepared for her first day, Maya practiced her new identity, stripping the natural authority from her voice and posture. She removed her expensive jewelry and styled her hair to be unremarkable. "Ready?" Robert asked as she stood by the penthouse door. "I still think this is unnecessary," she replied, adjusting her simple blazer. "But I'll play the part. How bad can it possibly be?" Robert's expression darkened. "That's exactly what I need you to find out." The glass and steel headquarters of Johnson Industries towered over the city, a monument to her father's legacy. As Maya walked through the revolving doors that Monday, she felt a strange mix of pride and apprehension. The security guard's indifferent glance at her temporary ID was a stark contrast to the deference she was accustomed to. This, she reminded herself, was the entire point. The marketing department on the 14th floor was a hive of activity. The receptionist gestured toward the manager's office without looking up. Derek Wilson sat behind an imposing oak desk, scrolling on his phone. When he finally looked up, his gaze swept over her, and his expression curdled from boredom to undisguised contempt. "So this is what HR sends me?" he said, not bothering to stand. "After I specifically requested qualified candidates?" Maya kept her expression neutral. "Maya Davis," she said, extending a hand. "I'm looking forward to joining the team." Derek ignored her hand, picking up her resume with 2 fingers as if it were contaminated. "Sarah from HR called, said I had to take you," he sighed dramatically. "Let's get this over with." He led her through the open plan office, past several empty desks with brand new computers, and deposited her in a cramped corner by the restrooms. A dusty desk and an outdated monitor awaited her. "This is you," Derek said flatly. "Passwords on the sticky note. Heather is your supervisor." As he walked away, Maya felt the weight of curious glances. Some held sympathy, others amusement. A few were simply indifferent. The blatant hostility was more jarring than she had anticipated. Heather appeared moments later, blonde and impeccably dressed, with a smile that never reached her eyes. "So, you're the new diversity hire," she said, her voice loud enough for the entire section to hear. "Let's see how long you last." Maya's computer took nearly 10 minutes to boot, its ancient processor whirring in protest. Across the room, 2 new white employees, Brad and Jennifer, were being welcomed with gift baskets and shiny new laptops. During the team introduction, Derek enthusiastically detailed Brad and Jennifer's backgrounds. When he got to Maya, he just gestured vaguely. "And that's Maya. She'll be helping out." When it was Maya's turn to speak, she began to detail her experience. "I specialize in digital marketing strategies for emerging markets. At my last position, I implemented a multi-channel campaign that increased conversion rates by 38%. "That's enough," Derek cut in sharply. "We don't need that kind of input right now. Let's move on." After the meeting, Brad and Jennifer were invited to a prestigious client pitch. Maya was tasked with organizing the supply closet. Back at her desk, Heather approached with a condescending smile, handing Maya a post-it note. "My coffee. The order is very specific." The list was absurd. Medium roast, almond milk steamed to exactly 150 degrees, 2 pumps of vanilla, 1.5 of caramel, stirred counterclockwise for 20 seconds, and finished with a sprinkle of cinnamon. Maya recognized the power play. In the empty office kitchen, she meticulously prepared the drink, using a thermometer to check the temperature. Despite the humiliation, her perfectionism wouldn't allow for a sloppy job. She placed the coffee carefully on Heather's desk. Heather took a theatrical sip, her eyes locked on Maya, her face twisted into a grimace. "This is disgusting. It's scalding and far too sweet." Before Maya could offer to remake it, Heather stood abruptly, knocking the full cup directly onto Maya's shirt. The scalding liquid soaked through instantly, the burn a sharp, sudden shock against her skin. "Oh my goodness," Heather gasped, her eyes gleaming with satisfaction. "You should be more careful." Laughter rippled from nearby desks, coffee dripped from her ruined blouse. Only the thought of her father, of her ultimate purpose here, kept her composure from cracking. Derek walked by, a smirk playing on his lips. "Clean yourself up," he said, "and the floor while you're at it." In the bathroom, Maya pressed paper towels against her reddened skin. Thankfully, her father had warned her to be prepared for anything. She had a change of clothes, but nothing could have prepared her for such deliberate cruelty. Later, when Maya suggested targeting overlooked demographics in a campaign meeting, Derek shut her down. "We'll stick to what works," he said dismissively. "Why don't you just take notes?" Lunchtime brought a repeat performance. Heather accidentally bumped her in the break room, sending a bowl of hot soup splashing across her clean blouse. "So clumsy today," Heather chirped to a chorus of snickers. It was in the supply closet that she met James, a graphic designer. He spoke in a hushed tone, his eyes darting toward the door. "They're trying to break you," he warned. "I've seen it before. 3 black employees in the last few months. None of them lasted more than 2 weeks. For Derek and Heather, it's a sport." "Why doesn't anyone say anything?" Maya asked. James gave her a weary look. "Speaking up means you're the next target." I've got a family to feed. The final straw came late that afternoon. Heather assigned Maya an impossible analysis with a 2-hour deadline and insufficient data. Drawing on her expertise, Maya produced a thorough report. Heather barely glanced at it before tossing it aside. "This is garbage," she announced loudly. "Is this the best someone like you can do?" Something inside Maya snapped, not with anger, but with cold resolve. "I completed the analysis with the limited information provided," she said, her voice firm and clear. "The methodology is sound. If you have specific concerns, I'd be happy to address them." The office fell silent, Heather's face flushed with fury. "Are you talking back to me?" Before Maya could respond, Derek was beside them, his expression thunderous. What happened next was a blur. His hand swung in a swift arc, and the sound, a sharp crack, echoed through the office. The slap stunned Maya more than it hurt. In her 28 years, no one had ever laid a hand on her. The silence was absolute. Shame was etched on James's face as he looked away. No one moved. No one spoke. "That's what happens when you don't know your place," Derek said, his voice a low threat. Maya touched her cheek, the warm imprint of his hand already fading. She scanned the room, meeting the eyes of her colleagues, each of them quickly looking away. She memorized every face. 3 days into her assignment, the harassment had become a predictable, soul-crushing routine. The slap had solidified Maya's understanding. This wasn't just a toxic environment, it was a deeply diseased one. She returned to her desk each day with her head held high, performing every demeaning task with unnerving professionalism. Her resilience seemed only to frustrate Derek and Heather more. They met in the break room, believing they were alone as they huddled by the vending machines. They didn't see Sofia Ramirez, a junior copywriter, sitting quietly in an adjacent alcove, partially hidden by a large plant. "She's not breaking," Derek hissed. "The slap, the water, the coffee, nothing works. She just keeps coming back." Heather twisted her watch nervously. "Maybe we should just back off. Build a case over time." "Months? I'm not having her in my department for months," Derek scoffed. "If she won't quit, we'll get her fired." Sophia's fingers moved silently to her phone. With painstaking slowness, she opened the recording app and pressed the red button. Her heart hammered against her ribs, so loud she was certain they could hear it. "What do you have in mind?" Heather asked. A cruel smile spread across Derek's face. "Equipment theft. It's immediate termination. Company policy." Sophia angled her phone just enough to capture their words clearly. "She'll deny it," Heather whispered. "Not with evidence," Derek replied. "I have access to an unassigned MacBook, a tablet, some noise-canceling headphones, about $8,000 worth of gear." Heather's eyes widened. "That's not just termination, Derek. That's criminal." He shrugged. "Not our problem once she's gone. She has that department-wide meeting tomorrow at 2. She always leaves her bag at her desk. I'll slip everything in, then discover it when she gets back. Open and shut." "What if someone sees you?" Derek laughed, a low, ugly sound. "Who's going to question me? I'm the department head." Besides, his voice dropped to a conspiratorial whisper, but the break room's acoustics carried every venomous word to Sophia's phone. "Everyone knows those people are more likely to steal anyway." A wave of nausea washed over Sophia. She fought the urge to stop, to run, and kept the recording active as Derek laid out the rest of his plan in meticulous detail. He specified exactly which items would be planted, the precise moment he would discover them, and even the security guards he would call to handle the aftermath. "This ends tomorrow," Derek concluded, his voice thick with satisfaction. "By this time tomorrow, Maya Davis will be escorted from this building, probably in tears, never to return." As Derek and Heather left the break room, their laughter echoing faintly, Sophia remained frozen, hardly daring to breathe. A glance at her phone confirmed it. 18 minutes and 42 seconds of crystal-clear audio documenting the entire conspiracy. Her hands trembled as she saved the file and backed it up to the cloud. She faced an impossible choice. Warn Maya, and she would almost certainly lose her job. Remain silent, and she would preserve her financial security while allowing an innocent woman to be framed for a crime that could ruin her life. The next day dawned with a tension that hummed just beneath the surface of the ordinary office buzz. For most, It was a day like any other. For Derek and Heather, it was the culmination of their vicious scheme. For Sophia, it was the heaviest moral burden she had ever carried. Maya arrived at 8:30, punctual as always, oblivious to the fact that her professional reputation hung by a thread. She moved through the morning with the same quiet confidence that had so infuriated Derek, her work sharp and insightful. At 5 minutes to 2, Maya gathered her notebook and headed toward the conference room for a department-wide meeting. As the invitation had instructed, she left her personal belongings at her desk, her shoulder bag tucked neatly beside her chair. Derek waited exactly 7 minutes before he made his move. He ambled toward her desk, carrying a padded laptop bag that held the tools of his betrayal. Glancing around to ensure no one was watching too closely, he knelt, as if retrieving a dropped pen. Inside the conference room, Maya was offering feedback on an upcoming marketing campaign, her ideas consistently more innovative and data-driven than anyone else's. Even the meeting facilitator, initially skeptical, was now openly acknowledging the value of her input. Back at her desk, Derek worked quickly. The laptop, the tablet, the headphones, and other small electronics were transferred into Maya's bag, arranged to look as if they had been hastily stuffed inside. He zipped the bag shut and returned to his office, a smug, satisfied smirk playing on his lips. From across the department, Sophia watched the entire scene unfold. Her stomach twisted into a knot of pure anxiety. She had wrestled with her conscience all night, ultimately deciding she couldn't intervene directly without sacrificing her own livelihood. Instead, her phone was ready, prepared to document whatever came next. The meeting concluded at 3:15. Maya returned to her desk, completely unaware of the trap that had been set. She had just sat down when Derek approached, a security guard trailing in his wake. "Maya Davis," Derek announced, his voice loud enough to command the attention of the entire department. "I need to check your bag." Maya looked up, her expression a mask of confusion. "My bag? Why?" "We've had reports of missing company equipment," Derek replied, his voice projecting across the now silent office. "Standard procedure. Everyone's being checked." It was a blatant lie. No one else had been searched. No such announcement had been made, but Maya, still deep within her cover, had no grounds to refuse. "Of course," she said calmly, handing over the bag. Derek made a theatrical show of opening it, his expression shifting from procedural boredom to shocked outrage. "What is this?" he demanded, pulling out the MacBook. "Company property." He continued to remove the items one by one, placing them on her desk for all to see. "A tablet? Headphones? What were you thinking?" Maya's confusion morphed into a dawning, sickening comprehension. "Those aren't mine," she stated, her voice firm. "I didn't put those in my bag." Derek's face twisted with contempt. "I knew you people couldn't be trusted," he said, his voice laced with an unmistakable racial undertone. "Security, escort her out. She's terminated, effective immediately." The guard, looking profoundly uncomfortable but bound by protocol, stepped forward. "Ma'am, I need you to come with me." Maya rose to her feet, her dignity a shield against the humiliation being heaped upon her. "May I make one phone call before I leave? Just one, that's all I ask." Derek laughed, a cruel, dismissive sound. "Call whoever you want, your lawyer, your family. It won't matter. You'll never work in this industry again. Your career is over." Keeping her gaze locked on Derek, Maya retrieved her personal phone and dialed a number. When the call connected, she spoke just 5 words. "Dad, it's time. Tomorrow morning." Derek rolled his eyes, assuming she was calling for emotional support. He had no way of knowing that on the other end of the line was Robert Johnson, the CEO of the very company Derek believed he controlled. "Clear out your desk," Derek commanded. "Anything left will be thrown out." Maya gathered her few personal items. As she prepared to leave, her eyes met Sophia's across the room. In that brief, silent moment, an unspoken understanding passed between them, a recognition, and perhaps a promise. The marketing department watched as Maya was led away. Some stared, some whispered, while others, like James, the graphic designer who had tried to warn her, simply clenched their jaws in silent rage. As the elevator doors closed, Derek turned to his stunned department. "Let this be a lesson," he announced, that self-satisfied smirk returning. "No matter what HR's diversity initiatives say, character is what matters in this company." To any observer, Maya's dramatic exit would have looked like the end. In reality, it was merely the prelude to the most extraordinary reversal of fortune in the company's history. That evening, Long after the office had emptied, Sophia copied her recording to a USB drive and tucked it safely in her wallet. She was terrified, but she was resolved. Whatever happened tomorrow, she would be ready. Meanwhile, in a penthouse overlooking the city, Maya Johnson changed out of her work clothes, the persona of Maya Davis melting away. "It was worse than we imagined, Dad," she said, recounting the day's events. "The discrimination isn't subtle, it's systematic, deliberate, and cruel." Robert Johnson's expression darkened as he listened. "I've seen enough," he said, his voice firm. "Tomorrow, we end this." As the sun set, three people prepared for the coming confrontation. Derek Wilson, confident in his victory; Sophia Ramirez, clutching the evidence that could destroy her; and Maya Johnson, selecting the executive suit she would wear when she revealed her true identity. Not as a desperate new hire, but as the incoming CEO who would transform Johnson Industries forever. Robert Johnson canceled his flight to Tokyo. An email was sent to every employee. Emergency all-staff meeting, 9 a.m. Attendance was mandatory. The next morning, whispers filled the marketing department when Maya's desk remained empty. Derek strode through the office with an air of smug satisfaction. "Looks like our problem took care of itself," he announced to anyone within earshot. At 8:45, employees from every department crowded into the main conference center on the top floor, their faces etched with confusion. Emergency meetings were unheard of. "The CEO is finally addressing our security concerns," Derek told his team confidently, positioning himself near the front. He arranged the laptop and other devices on the table, along with a personnel file annotated with false claims. At precisely 9 o'clock, Robert Johnson entered. He was flanked by two security officers and the head of HR. The room fell silent. His usual casual demeanor was gone, replaced by an expression of granite-like seriousness. His anger was a palpable force in the room. "Good morning," he began, his voice deep and commanding. "I've called this meeting because something deeply disturbing has come to my attention about the culture at Johnson Industries." Misreading the situation entirely, Derek seized his moment. "Sir, if I may," he interjected. "We had an incident yesterday. We caught a new hire stealing company equipment." He gestured to the items on the table. When confronted, she became hostile. He presented his falsified evidence with unwavering confidence, recommending stricter security protocols and background checks for certain applicants. Robert listened without interruption, his expression unreadable. When Derek finished, the CEO asked a single question. "Where is this employee now? I'd like to hear her side of the story." A smirk bloomed on Derek's face. "I had her removed immediately, sir. In my professional judgment, she was a security threat." Robert nodded slowly. Then he turned to one of the officers. "Please bring in our special guest." The conference room doors opened. Every head turned. Maya Johnson entered. But this was not the Maya from marketing. This Maya walked with the confident stride of an executive, dressed in an impeccably tailored suit. She carried herself with the unmistakable air of someone who belonged at the head of the table. Confusion rippled through the room. Derek's expression collapsed from smug certainty to bewildered disbelief. What is this?" Robert Johnson placed a hand on Maya's shoulder. "I'd like to introduce my daughter," he announced, his voice ringing with paternal pride. "Maya Johnson, your new chief executive officer." The room erupted in gasps. Derek's face drained of all color. Heather, sitting in the second row, looked as though she might faint. "This has to be some kind of joke," Derek stammered. "No joke, Derek," Maya said, her voice steady and measured. "For the past 2 weeks, I have experienced and documented systematic discrimination in this company, a company my father built, a company I have trained my entire life to lead. What I found was a culture of harassment and abuse, actively encouraged by management." From the back of the room, a young woman rose to her feet. It was Sophia. "It's true," she said, her voice gaining strength with each word as she held up her phone. "I have proof. I recorded Derek and Heather yesterday, planning to frame Maya for theft." "You're lying!" Derek bellowed. "Play the recording," Maya said calmly. Sophia connected her phone to the speakers. The conspirators' voices filled the room, their damning plan echoing in the stunned silence. As the recording played, another figure stood. It was James, the graphic designer. "I've seen this before," he said, looking directly at Derek. For 5 years, I've watched you target every person of color who came through that department. I stayed silent because I was afraid. I won't be silent anymore." As James spoke, detailing years of quiet discrimination, Maya moved to the computer at the front of the room. "With legal approval," she explained, "we installed cameras throughout the marketing department 2 weeks ago." The main screen lit up. The entire room watched in horrified silence as the footage played. The coffee spill, the racial slurs, the impossible assignments, and finally, the moment Derek slapped Maya across the face. The video concluded by showing him planting the devices in her bag. When it ended, the room was deathly still. "We were just testing her resilience," Derek protested, sweat beading on his forehead. "It's a high-pressure industry." "It was team building," Heather added frantically. Maya regarded them with the cool assessment of a true executive. "Derek Wilson, Heather Davis," she said, her voice clear and resolute. "You're fired, effective immediately." She turned to HR. "Their personal items will be sent to them. They are not to return to their desks." "You can't do this," Derek flushed scarlet. "I'll sue." "By all means," Maya replied calmly. "I'm sure a jury would love to see our video evidence." She nodded to security. "Please escort them from the building." As Derek and Heather were led away, their protests fading down the hall, Maya addressed the remaining employees. "What you witnessed today is unacceptable," she said, her voice now filled with vision and resolve. "It stops now. As your new CEO, my first priority is to restore a culture of respect and equal opportunity. Discrimination of any kind will not be tolerated." The room erupted in spontaneous applause, a wave of genuine relief washing over the assembly. As the employees filed out, shaken but hopeful, Maya stood at the front, her father by her side. The journey had just begun, but already the air felt clearer. 1 week later, the employees of Johnson Industries gathered again. The atmosphere of fear was gone, replaced by a quiet optimism. The news of Maya's undercover operation had made headlines, and the company's stock, after a brief dip, was already rebounding. Maya stood at the podium, no longer an undercover employee, but the poised executive she was born to be. "1 week ago," she began, "many of you witnessed an uncomfortable truth. Today marks not just my official introduction as CEO, but the beginning of a new chapter for Johnson Industries." Behind her, a presentation detailed new initiatives, concrete plans for a more equitable and innovative future. She spoke not of vague promises, but of actionable change, her voice resonating with the authority of a leader ready to build a company worthy of its founding principles. Instead, Maya detailed the specific, immediate changes already underway. "As of this morning," she announced, "we have launched a comprehensive anti-discrimination training program. Every single employee, from the mailroom to the boardroom, will complete it within the next 30 days. This is not a token gesture. The training will be ongoing, with quarterly refreshers and a mandatory annual certification." She clicked to the next slide, revealing the details of a new reporting system. "We've partnered with a third-party ethics firm to implement a platform that is completely anonymous. Reports will go directly to an independent review board, bypassing internal management entirely. Let me be clear, there will be no retaliation against anyone who speaks up about misconduct. Ever." She continued, her voice steady and sure, outlining a restructured hiring process with diverse interview panels for every open position. She detailed revised performance reviews, stripped of the subjective metrics that had so often disadvantaged minorities, and announced a comprehensive audit of all salaries to identify and rectify pay disparities. "These changes are not optional," Maya emphasized, her gaze sweeping across the room. "They are not aspirational. They are the new bedrock of this company, the absolute minimum standard for how we will operate from this moment forward." As she spoke, a subtle shift occurred in the room. Employees who had long kept their heads down, afraid to draw attention, now sat a little taller. Those who had been complicit in the toxic culture shifted in their seats, a cold realization dawning. The status quo that had served them so well was gone. "Now," Maya said, her tone shifting slightly, "I'd like to announce some organizational changes. James Williams, please join me on stage." James, the graphic designer who had finally, haltingly, given voice to years of witnessed discrimination, walked toward the stage. Many remembered the tremor in his voice at the last meeting, the courage it took to break his silence. James has been with Johnson Industries for 5 years, Maya said. His portfolio shows exceptional creative vision and leadership, qualities that have been inexcusably overlooked as he was repeatedly passed over for promotion. Effective immediately, James is our new creative director for the marketing department. The room erupted in applause. James, overcome with emotion, shook Maya's hand. For years, he had watched less qualified colleagues climb the ladder while his own career stagnated. Now, his talent was finally being seen. "Sofia Ramirez," Maya called out, "please join us as well." The young Latina copywriter, the one who had risked her job to record Derek and Heather's conspiracy, made her way forward. Everyone knew her recording had been the final, undeniable piece of evidence. Sofia demonstrated profound courage, standing up for what is right, even when it was difficult and dangerous, Maya declared. "Today, I am proud to announce the creation of our new employee advocacy program, with Sofia as its inaugural director. This program will provide resources, support, and a powerful voice for employees navigating workplace issues." After several more announcements, Maya addressed the question hanging in the air. "Many of you have asked about potential lawsuits from our former employees. Let me be unequivocal. While everyone deserves due process, the evidence of their misconduct is overwhelming. Our legal team is fully prepared, but more importantly, we are focusing our resources on supporting their victims with counseling services and, where appropriate, compensation." The formal presentation concluded, but Maya wasn't finished. She set her notes aside and stepped out from behind the podium, her posture open and direct. Later that evening, as the headquarters emptied out, Maya sat in her father's old office, now hers. Robert Johnson sat across from her, his expression a mixture of pride and deep contemplation. "You did well today," he said, his voice quiet. "Better than I ever could have." Maya smiled, shrugging out of her blazer and settling into the large leather chair. "I had a good teacher." "I always knew you were ready to be CEO," Robert said, his tone growing serious. "What I didn't realize was how badly this company needed you. Not just your business acumen, but your perspective." He rose and walked to the vast window overlooking the city lights. "I built this place from nothing. 40 years of nurturing it, preparing it for you." He turned back to face her. "But I failed to build the right culture. I was so focused on the numbers, the innovation. I was blind to the poison spreading right under my nose." Maya joined him at the window. "We're fixing it now, Dad, together." She placed a hand on his shoulder. "Sometimes you have to live the problem to truly understand the solution. What happened to me was awful, but it opened my eyes to what others have been enduring for years." Robert nodded slowly. "When you called me that first day, told me where they put you, how they treated you, I wanted to storm in here and end the whole experiment." "I'm glad you didn't," Maya replied softly. "If we'd only heard about it secondhand, we might have settled for half measures, surface fixes. But now we know exactly what needs to be torn down and rebuilt." 1 month later, Maya walked through the marketing department. The desks, the computers, the view of the city, all were the same. But the atmosphere was transformed. The oppressive tension that once coiled in the air had been replaced by a vibrant hum of collaboration. James now led a diverse creative team, which included several new hires from backgrounds rarely seen in corporate marketing. Sofia's advocacy program had already successfully resolved dozens of employee concerns, long before they could fester into larger problems. Most importantly, the people had changed. Silent bystanders now spoke up. Those who had been targeted now had clear, safe pathways to seek justice. And those who couldn't adapt to a culture of respect, they had quietly found their way to the exit. Maya paused at the desk where she had once sat as Maya Davis, the cramped, forgotten corner by the restrooms. It was now a small, comfortable break area. A simple plaque on the wall read, "Never forget where we came from, or how far we still have to go." As she finished her tour, her voice resonated over scenes of the transformed workplace. "My time undercover changed more than just this company. It changed me. I thought I understood leadership, from my education, my training, my past successes. But experiencing discrimination firsthand taught me a lesson no business school ever could. I learned that true leadership isn't about vision or strategy or financial results. It's about creating an environment where everyone can contribute their best work, free from fear and artificial limitations. It's about recognizing that talent exists in all kinds of people, from all kinds of backgrounds. And most importantly, I learned that changing a toxic culture requires more than just removing a few bad actors. It requires a sustained commitment, concrete policies, and the courage to keep having the uncomfortable conversations. We're not perfect at Johnson Industries today. We're still learning, still growing, but we are finally doing it together, with honesty and with accountability.